Welcome to TriPoint Conversations. I'm your host, Christina Lowe, and today I'm joined by Linda Babulic. Linda is an author, speaker, leadership trainer, executive coach, and founder of Zest Your Life. Over the years, she's helped people improve communication, strengthen relationships, navigate transitions, and reconnect with themselves during seasons of change. Linda's path evolved through leadership training, personal experiences, and years of helping people work through challenges, both professionally and personally. Today, we're going to talk about that journey, what she's learned along the way, and some practical things we can all do to live with a little more clarity and intention. Linda, I'm really glad you're here.
Oh, well, thank you for having me, Christina.
And so I want to get started. When I look at your background, it doesn't look like a straight line. Uh, so can you talk to me about how you got started as a travel agent and then going back to school and how it's developed into what you're doing today?
Well, my husband was a corporate executive, so we moved, and that meant every time we moved, I had the opportunity to reinvent my life. And that meant going back to finish my degree, well, starting my degree in one city and then finishing it in another city, working as a travel agent, which is a really good personal skill to have because I've used it so much in our personal travel now. And it just got me to the point where I was living in Ottawa, working on Parliament Hill. This was about 1990. And everything was beautiful. Everything was working out really well. I had a great job. The kids were good teenagers. And then I went out for a run, came back, and I was not feeling so good. I had a huge migraine. It turned out that I was sick for 2.5 years. I think I calculated 860 days.
Wow.
And it was mysterious. They didn't know what it was. They put me through a battery test. I was in intensive care in the hospital. And then I went back to work and just plugged through. And after the 2.5 years, I suddenly started to feel better. It was like a mini miracle. I was skiing. I was at the top of the mountain, sitting down in the sun, having lunch. And I closed my eyes for a moment. And when I woke up, it was like everything was beautiful. Life was marvelous again. My body didn't hurt. I felt really, really good. And that was the beginning of a new life for me, to have that lift itself off of me. And then I went back to work and everything was good. And then all of a sudden there was a yearning inside my body. Like 10 years later, it took me a decade. My body was healed, but my soul was craving for something more. And that's when I was invited to a vision quest by a couple of friends of mine. I had no idea what that meant. It started, my first ceremony was what they call the Night on the Mountain of Fear. And what it was, is you go out into the woods, and I was sent out at dusk. So you find a clearing in the woods, and this is in a forest in an abandoned farm in northern Ontario. So it's cold at night, even in the summer. And I'm the biggest coward, because if you startle me, I'll scream and you might even put me into tears. So to be out there in the dark by myself all night long, well, except for probably a million mosquitoes attacking me, was a real feat, to be there all night long and to just be able to release that fear and settle down. And that was huge. I can understand after why they called it the Night on the Mountain of Fear. And when I looked back, when the sun started to rise, it was like, I did that. I had enough courage to stand it out. Because, of course, we could have bailed. There was always the option for that. But I didn't. I stayed there. And I finished my entire ceremony. I was so proud of myself when I got up and woke up that morning. Well, woke up, I was up all night. When the sun rose, to realize that if I had the courage to do that, I could do anything. And that was a real turnaround for me. It was when I rebuilt a relationship with myself. That identity piece, it's vital to have a relationship with ourselves before everybody else.
So coming out of that, when you talk about relationship and identity, how did that experience then change kind of what led you forward and doing what you're doing today?
Well, it was really interesting because I had a different attitude about myself and that different relationship, then my relationship with my family changed. My relationship with my friends changed. I wasn't afraid anymore. I wasn't afraid to speak my truth. And there was a softness that came into me. Before that, I was so busy surviving that I was a little harsh, like harsh with myself and harsh with others. But this just toned me right down to be a really nice person, where before I was just trying too hard to survive, to be liked, to be cared for. And that went away so that I was better able to care for others and to really understand what other people were going through from a place of the heart.
Hmm. So when you look back, what experience do you think shaped most in the work that you are doing today, in addition to the Vision Quest?
It was really to be able to understand people, to
Hmm.
understand that conversations and communication need to happen in a certain way, and not everybody can do that. And if we stand in our own power, we can lead really good conversations, which, Christina, you're really good at doing,
Thank you.
listening to your podcast, because that's a skill. It's a talent, and it can be learned. And so when I started to teach my program, my corporate program on fundamentals of leadership, it was nice that we started with what I used to call communication, but I realized it's conversations.
Hmm.
Can I give you an example?
Absolutely.
You go to Starbucks, you get your coffee, order it. I want a grande mocha, non-fat, extra whip, blah, blah, blah. That's communication. I go to the other end of the counter to pick up my coffee, and she goes, "Oh, what a lovely sweater. Where did you get that?" I go, "Oh, I got it here."
Hmm.
That's conversation. And often we confuse the two.
When you were doing your leadership classes and training, did people come to you with the question about communication versus conversation, or was that even something that they had thought about before, that there was a difference between the two?
I didn't know there was a difference until I taught the program a few times.
Okay.
And I wrote it in, but didn't express it quite so clearly. But they
Hmm.
understood that there's a gap. There's the listener and the speaker.
Hmm.
And then when they could understand that you're trying to close that gap, because with some people, there is no gap. We
Hmm.
finish each other's sentences. We understand what we mean. So they really got to understand the power of having those conversations in a very volatile workplace. It was auto parts suppliers to a major auto industry. And it's busy, it's noisy, it's always rushed. And especially for the women, there were only a couple of women that worked there.
Hmm.
And that was especially challenging for them to understand that men and women have different ways to converse. Even their body language is different.
Hmm.
Women like to talk face to face. Men like to talk shoulder to shoulder. Watch them. They're fishing, they're golfing, they're on the construction site, they're shoulder to shoulder.
So as long as you know other people's communication styles and you understand where someone's coming from, and if it's not your communication style, that's okay, because it doesn't mean that something is wrong. That's just the way that they communicate, shoulder to shoulder versus face to face.
Absolutely. And the program was spread over 4 weeks.
Hmm.
And of course, when you tell them, do it like this, don't do it like that, they're going to try it, which I encourage them to do. And there was one supervisor that said he had a female employee that worked for him. She came up to him, talked to him face to face, and he kept shifting himself around to be side to side. And he came back with such a good sharing with the group. He said, not only was she terribly uncomfortable to be able to look me in the face, he says, I was so uncomfortable to have to stand there and look her in the face. So everybody really enjoyed that he had tested the theory, and he
Hmm.
certainly found it worked.
Okay. So now, when you're doing your leadership training, when I talked to you before, you had mentioned there was a time in your life where there was a season that you felt, I'll say, a little stuck. Can you talk about what was happening in your life during that time and how you eventually got out of that stuck phase?
Well, a lot of that was that personal discovery. When I went on that vision quest, I started to peel things back
Mhm.
about myself. And the more I interacted with people, the more that opened up. And then the big break for me was when I started to write my book, Zest Your Life, A Taste of Inner Wisdom. It's
Mhm.
based on my corporate training programs that I converted into person to person. So couples read it together. And there were couples at those programs that would stay after and ask me questions about relationships. So that's what that book is all about. It's about that conscious human connection. And that really broke it open for me because if you want to be cracked open, just write a book and start writing it very personally because it gets very emotional when you have to dig into those pieces of yourself. So
Mhm.
it's rather nice to be able to have it all journaled out, and my journey started there.
And so, were you hearing questions from the people that you were training over and over that were the same types of questions that you were hearing from them, or?
It was mostly how to build their own relationship, how to talk to each other. There was one man, I met him at the grocery store parking lot. He was with his wife, and he opened the door, got her out of the truck. He says, wait, wait. And he says, this is the woman who saved our marriage. And she's like, what? This is Linda. She taught the course.
Mhm.
And it's because he could listen to her before, not interrupt her, just let her say what she needed to say.
Mhm.
Another man in the course came back one day and he said, I had a conversation with my 10-year-old that I haven't had in 2 years. He could just listen to her.
Yeah.
Just let her ramble on and say whatever she wanted to say. He asked her the right questions. And that's a really big part of it is to ask the right questions and to listen to the answer.
So, yeah, when people do feel that they are heard, then it probably does open up a deeper sense of a relationship because then they can open up more knowing that the person is listening to them actively versus passively.
Oh, 100%. And to be able to ask the right questions
Mhm.
makes a big difference in how you ask a question. Not, why did you do that?
Mhm.
But what's another way of doing this? What's another choice?
So, if you spend decades working with people, what do you think people are searching for today?
I think they're trying to recalibrate after COVID.
Mhm.
And they're trying to readjust their life to find what I call their inner compass because our compass is weird. It's like there was a magnet stuck on your compass and then it just whirls around. And we still haven't quite found our sea legs. We're still not quite in balance. We're not quite in alignment. And there's so much going on in the world that we can sometimes gain focus and have all of those distractions instead of realizing what can we control in our life and how can I align my life with my values, with what I care about, and with who I care about.
So, would you say then the biggest struggles would be aligning values and priorities, or what would you say that people are most struggling with today?
I think it is that alignment because they don't know where they want to go. So it's
Mhm.
hard, even if you have a compass in your hand. If you don't know where you're going and you're in a forest full of trees,
Mhm.
you're not going to be able to find your way because you don't know what your destiny is. You don't know what your purpose is. And that's the biggest struggle right now. There's a lot of shrugging, going, I don't know what I want to do. And I don't know how I got where I am. I don't know how I got so stuck. And then they get occupied with busyness. I'm so busy. I'm so
Mhm.
busy. And that's just the mind needs to settle down so that they could figure out why they're here. I believe we all have a purpose on the planet. We're all here to make the world a better place.
Why do you think so many people seem to be losing touch with themselves in different areas of their lives, whether it's marriage or friendships or work?
I think there are too many distractions. And
Mhm.
people don't know how to walk away from those distractions, to shut off the signal from your emails coming in, to all those notifications. And I think an easy solution would be to let go of the past, do some releasing of what is holding them back, what's triggering them, what makes them sad, what makes them mad. And then when you start to figure out everything you're grateful for in your life, then you'll get a lot more coming into your life. Whatever you focus on, if you're focusing on the past and the fear and the anger and all the bad things that happen to you, that's not going to put you in a very good mental state. But if
Mhm.
you wake up every morning in gratitude that you did wake up and that you have something somewhere in your life, and just look outside. I mean, it's beautiful. Spend some time in nature. Nature will teach you how to behave. The birds don't worry about whether their neighbors like them or not. The birds
Mm.
just do their thing.
So, do you have some practical tips for people that are trying to get grounded? I mean, we talked about, I heard you say nature and have gratitude, but what's a practical tip that you would share to practice gratitude?
Well, one of the things that I work on is, it sounds a little bit funny, but it works. And that is that we have so many words that come out of our mouth, don't come out of our mouth, things we said, things we didn't say, things that other people say to us, and we have to swallow. So, what I've asked my clients to do, and they like it, is when you brush your teeth in the morning, just that's how fast you can change your life. Just in the morning, brush your teeth and just say, I release. I release all of the bad words. I release, and I don't mean just swear words. I mean
Mhm.
the gossip, the negativity, the complaining. I release the complaining. I release the negativity. Um, Whatever it is that comes to your mind, I release that. I'm mad at the dog. I release my anger. And you can make a whole litany of things you're angry about and release all of that. Let it go, rinse, repeat. And then you could do that at night too, at the end of the day when you're brushing your teeth. What are you going to get? You brush your teeth, sure, you get nice, clean, shiny teeth. But wouldn't it be nice if that time was invested in releasing the pain and bringing in the joy? So at the end of the day, do it with gratitude. I'm so happy and grateful that, well, we've had 24 hours of rain here. So I'm really happy and grateful it's stopped raining and the sun is shining and the lilacs are blooming now. So it doesn't take much for us to be grateful because
Mhm.
there's so much to be grateful for. I'm grateful for being here with you today.
So, do you have a routine that you go through throughout the day, whether morning, midday, or evening, that you put into practice?
Absolutely. I wake up in the morning and I do have my gratitude. I always wake up and say good morning to my husband. And he says, it sounds a little vain, but he says, good morning, beautiful. And it just warms my heart. I mean, we've been
Mhm.
married 55 years. And
Congratulations.
thank you. It's in 2 weeks. And that's what I wake up to each morning. I feel like infused with that. It's like, ah, that's so nice. Did you have a good sleep? And then a few days a week, I go to the gym, but I get up at 7. I'll go to the gym, do my workout. I come home. I'll do my meditation while he makes my breakfast. And he's retired. And we sit, we have a cup of coffee. We'll often eat on the front porch if the weather's nice. And then I could sit down and do my work. I'm working on finalizing my second book and have dinner, maybe go for a swim, depending on what the weather is like. So I like that routine. Every single day I've meditated since 2017,
Okay.
almost every day. I have journals. What I love about it is it's a written meditation. So there's no distractions. I just can write in my journal.
And so, with your experience working with other people, what would be some simple things and habits that you would recommend people try to put into their lives?
Gratitude's the biggest one that I can come up with.
Hmm.
Just be grateful for anything. You know, for years, I drove old wrecky cars that you weren't sure it was going to start. I get into my car, I start my car. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for something that simple that the car started. The other thing that we're not doing well enough that's causing a lot of stress in our bodies and in our mind is we're not breathing enough. We need to have that big breath in and that big exhale. And here's another breath that I do with my clients when, when you get all tight in the chest,
Hmm.
just remember you've watched a little kid cry. And when the little kid's crying, they get to the end of their crying, they go,
Hmm.
and you can do that. They do it spontaneously, but we can do that consciously. And you could just feel all of the tension come out of your body. And I'll often do that. If I feel my shoulders are starting to climb up to my ears, then I'll give myself that nice cleansing breath. And I don't know why, I always picture a little kid standing there, and it just makes me laugh to see their little pudgy arms and their little pudgy hands, and they
Yep.
get so mad, and then they just release it all. And that's really nice to just, breathe and really appreciate that we can, because we can't always.
Well, I was going to ask what breathing does. So it sounds like the way you breathe can help release some of that anxiety or pressure that you've put on yourself.
Absolutely, it does. It cleans, and I do Pilates 3 times a week. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of that is breathe in through the nose, out through the mouth.
Mm-hmm.
And I read this really good book about breath, and he says if you're a breather, you can see people that only breathe through their mouth. Their jaws actually get more narrow. Their teeth might buckle in. So the whole breath. I mean, it's the first thing we do in our lives is take a breath, and
Mm-hmm.
it's the last thing we do at the end of our life is take a breath. So that's why it's so sacred. And that alone, think of every time you take a breath as a sacred breath, that it's connecting you with the divine. It's cleaning your blood. It's cleaning your heart. It's releasing all of that.
So when you talk about connection, how do you think connection or maybe disconnection kind of shows up in your work and everyday life and what it can do if you are disconnected?
Well, if you're disconnected, and it's easy to see that happen. I mean, go to any grocery store and people are just so preoccupied in themselves. But if you just look up at the cashier and you just say, "Thank you so much. I'm glad you're here today." Really?
Yeah.
They're shocked.
They're probably used
Or
to people scanning and going, scanning and going.
exactly.
Yeah.
And it's the easiest. And like that woman at Starbucks who told me she really liked my sweater. It was like, that's so nice. And
Hmm.
it doesn't take much for us to connect with someone else. Sometimes just a smile, just a nod. Maybe they haven't had anyone smile at them in days. And just saying good morning.
How do you think connection helps with decision making in people's work life?
Well, whenever we want any decisions at home or at work, we need to have consensus. And the first thing we're trying to do is figure out what it is, what's the problem we're trying to solve.
Mhm.
And that was always a fun exercise when you're doing group training, because you give them the exercise and one group's trying to solve one part of the puzzle and somebody else is trying to solve another part of the puzzle. But what is the true purpose
Mhm.
of having that connection, that conversation? So if you're trying to problem solve, first you need to agree on what it is that you're trying to have the conversation about. Is it about vacation, time off, the way something is being done? So once you agree on what the issue is, what the challenge might be, then we can start to decipher on different ways that this solution can come about.
And you think about your experience, what leadership lesson has had the greatest impact on your own life?
I love that you chose that word, impact. When I went on a medicine journey to Peru and Bolivia with my teacher from my shamanic school, we're at the top of the mountain and we're all in a circle. And she says, "Linda, you're going to have impact. I thought, oh, the ego was all so happy. I got recognition from the teacher. And she goes, you have to decide what that impact's going to be. Like I said, sometimes the impact was a little more harsh than it needed to be.
Mm-hmm.
She said, you decide what your impact's going to be. So that was the biggest leadership lesson I learned. Because do I want to be acting like a nasty woman, a nasty person, being mean to people, controlling them, manipulating them? Because I had a point in my life where I was doing that because I wanted the power and control. But that doesn't count. That's just ego. That's not
Mm-hmm.
real power. But when you're gentle and you have conscious human connection with someone, then you have all the power in the world. And you know what? You don't need it anymore. And you don't want it. So that's when my life turned around to what kind of impact do I want to have? I want to make a difference in people's lives. And I want to do that in a way that will improve the world around them.
So it sounds like being more intentional in your life and the saying, keeping the end in mind, having that end in mind and then being intentional about how are you going to get there and what actions are going to get you there, or what shouldn't you be doing?
Yeah, you should not be. So many clients I've worked with, they're yelling at their staff. It's like, oh, don't yell at your staff. I mean, I worked for someone who was yelling at me. Have you ever had somebody yell at you?
Absolutely. Yes.
I was like, no, you're yelling at your staff. You're overworking them. You're underpaying them. And you wonder why productivity is down. Don't yell at your staff. Don't yell at anybody. Don't even yell at the dog.
Mm-hmm.
Unless the house is on fire, don't yell. There's no need to be yelling and screaming at anyone. And that has a double effect because it goes out to whoever hears you and it comes right back into you. So no yelling. That would be the number one negative thing that you can do that's going to destroy everything around you.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because it's not just in work, but it's in life lessons. It's my daughter's soccer coach, and we have to have discussions about, these are the different ways that people can talk to each other, and how someone chooses to talk to you, whether it's at school or coaching or at work, doesn't reflect necessarily on you and what you've done, but it's more about them and how they're choosing to react.
Absolutely. And one of the big things that really helped me was taking voice training.
Okay.
So
Can
that
you just explain a little bit more of that?
when you walked, well, I'm also an actor and a model. And that's just recent. That was just the last few years because I jumped on the opportunity when the agent recruited me. But a big part of it, I'd already done voice training for speaking on stages. So when somebody's coming at you and they're real harsh, if you speak to them at the same volume, you're going to keep that energy going at that level. But if you just bring it down a little and step back a little, it's going to make a huge difference. You just go, oh, and let them finish.
Mm-hmm.
Say, okay, can we start again without the yelling? Because I didn't quite understand what you said. So explain to me what it is. And if you ask them a couple of questions, and they'll often start by blaming you, but then you could just say, I understand, or I don't understand. You don't want to lie. You want to tell the truth. That's a big part of communication, is always telling the truth about, I'm not quite clear on what you mean by that. Or instead of apologizing, if you think you're fine and you did everything right, instead of apologizing, saying, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that, you just say, I'm sorry, I hurt your feelings.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, I hurt your feelings can go a long, long way in communication. And watching your tone, keeping your tone a little deeper voice, because when you're all high pitched, you're going to get the whole room excited and not in a good way. You want to be able to use your voice like when you're on stage. If it's something dramatic, you move forward and you lower your voice. If it's something that's frightening or you're telling a bad story that people are going to get upset about, step back on the stage. So there's all those techniques that I taught to my classes. They thought it was a real blast. And to be able to stand in front of somebody or beside somebody. And it's real fun to be able to do that and to feel what a difference it makes in your body and how you can control a situation.
Hmm.
And smile. If you can squeeze a smile in there or a sense of humor about it,
Hmm.
going, oh, sorry, I totally messed that up, didn't I? Oh, God. Don't call yourself names, though. Don't call yourself stupid. Don't call yourself anything.
Hmm.
Just say, oh, I messed that up. That came out all wrong. And you could laugh at yourself. And
Yes.
then they'll laugh at you, go, yeah, you were a real idiot. To go, oh, thanks. Thanks for supporting me in that. And then it just becomes a little laugh and you can move on. I mean,
Hmm.
55 years has taught me a thing or two about communication.
Hmm. So you've written your book, Zest Your Life, and now you've written another book and launching that soon. What is that about and what led to that second book?
So Zest Your Life was based on the corporate programs. It tells you what to do, what questions to ask, how to listen. This is more of a how-to, and I've written it in a novel format. And it's following the journey of a young woman who's 27 years old, and she's stuck. And she's in a difficult relationship, and she's just a little lost. And the book opens with Emily being invited to a wisdom circle by two of her good friends. And she goes to the circle. She realizes how many great things she can do with her life. She really comes of age in that period of the year. So we start at spring equinox. We go to summer solstice, to autumn equinox, and the book ends just after winter solstice. So she meets a shaman. And the shaman teaches her all these sacred practices, how to control her anger, how not to try to control the boyfriend. So it goes through quite a few things like that. And it's really tied in with the sacred medicine wheel of calling in the sacred directions. And what do you do with that?
So are these things that you've gone through in your life, or where did this inspiration come from?
Well, some of it's a bit biographical.
Mm.
Because when my editors were asking me for a story, it was like, okay, I'll just write one of mine
Hmm.
and just write one of my stories into the book. So there is some biography. The characters in the book are all named for people I love, using their second names
Hmm.
with permission. And it's really to have someone go through that evolution, to walk the path with Emily, to know that there's so much more to life. She really learns about nature and a lot of different aspects of nature that maybe she wouldn't have realized before. One of the scenes, she's at the top of a mountain pre-dawn, and she watches the sun come up. A lot of people have never done that. They've never seen the sun come up. So yes, a lot of it's my own experience. Wading in a river, I'm a fly fisher. Seeing the little bluebird houses along the river, I explain why that is. I used to live in an old growth forest, so I talk about old growth forests and why
Yeah.
they're important and why there's no bush underneath, because the trees are too tall. So I've incorporated a lot of those lessons and just teachings into it so people understand more about nature while they're following Emily's journey, while she's learning it too.
Okay. So I was going to ask, you mentioned nature again. If there was someone listening thinking, what is something that they could do or incorporate, would you suggest that they get out in nature a little bit more?
And a lot of people don't think that there's no nature in the city. Well, there's lots of nature in the city,
Hmm.
and it doesn't take much. And nature doesn't have to be a leaf, it could be a rock. You
Hmm.
know, kids are always picking up rocks and they put them in their mouths. I never could have understood that concept, but they do. I mean, you empty out a kid's pockets and they're full of rocks. So
Yep.
just walk along, ask permission. Would you like to come with me? And then just say thank you. You can carry it around in your pocket. When my son-in-law was going through chemo, he had a crystal I gave him in his pocket. He's sort of like, Linda, whatever. You want me to carry a crystal to chemo? I'll take it. He's cured now. Not because of the crystal, but yes, he's all out of that. But it doesn't take much. Like you can
Hmm.
I have a little quartz crystal heart that someone gave me,
Hmm.
and it sits on my desk. Quartz crystal, the rose crystal, is really important because it opens the heart. So that alone, I carry them in my purse. I went to a networking event not long ago, And I noticed a man was wearing a beaded bracelet. And I said, oh, that's nice. He goes, oh, yeah, I love stones. And I reached into my purse and I gave him a little rose quartz. He reached into his pocket and gave me one of his stones.
Oh, that was nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it opens the heart.
Mhm.
My water jug has rose quartz in it because it opens the heart to everybody that pours water out of that jug. It's all connecting with nature. Just look outside.
Mhm. So yeah, nature doesn't have to come just in the trees or the forest, but in so many other areas of life.
Absolutely. And we forget that.
I want to get into a round, what I call lightning round, where it's just quick question answers. A book that you would recommend.
My most favorite book is Barbara Kingsolver, The Poisonwood Bible.
Okay.
In fact, I think I have a couple of copies of it because I bought them and lent them to people and then they give them back to me.
Uh-huh.
But it's a beautifully written book. The technique of her writing through the voices of all the characters in the family. It's a missionary family that go to Africa as missionaries, and every member of the family has a voice in the book on how they're interpreting what's going on around them.
Very interesting. I'll have to check that out.
It's so well written. She's amazing.
What is something that you think people make too complicated in their lives?
Addressing conflict.
I can definitely see that.
Yeah, they don't. Well, first of all, if you're going to address a difficult situation, think it through. Just think it through. Take a shower, let the water wash through you, and just think, like, what's really important to me?
Mm-hmm.
Is this a deal breaker? Or can I just mention this and let it go?
Mm-hmm.
And if it's more than 24 hours old, you should have let it go.
Mm-hmm.
Because then it's too old to bring back up. And that's just going to cause a whole mess of stuff. So your timing is so important when you're having difficult conversations.
Yeah.
Don't wait until somebody crawls in after a hard day of work or people are tired or hungry. Don't have a conversation when people are hungry. You need to feed the folks first, and then you can have those difficult conversations.
Yes.
But that's what people are really not very good at doing these days.
Mm. Sorry, my dog is behind me. I usually put them away into another room, but hold on. I don't know what he's done. Is it this one? Yes. Okay. What is something that people don't spend enough time doing?
Being quiet. I grew up in a very busy household, and it was loud. And I never appreciated quiet time until I got to go camping and to just be quiet, just sit there.
Mm-hmm. What is bringing you joy right now?
So many things. The book does, certainly. Yeah. The main character, Emily, has redesigned the cover. She's in industrial design. And so she's designed the cover now so that it's 3D. She's done a great job. So that's really fun to see her working on the design of the book and really finding so much joy in it. It's great. So that's bringing me a lot of joy. Getting closer to launch date. The pool's open, the pool's warm, getting outside, being in the yard again. That all brings me joy. It doesn't take a lot to make me happy.
Yeah. Seems like you
Because
are
I've let
full
go.
of gratitude.
Yes, and I've let go of all the sorrow and the trauma and the drama and all of that. I was 17 when Mom died. Like, I had a bit of attitude. I was mad. I was very mad. But once you get past all of that, well, that's just the way it is. I'm not going to let it take the joy out of my life now.
Is there something that you can attribute to being able to let things go and focus on the joy versus the pain?
Certainly all the techniques that I learned through reading books and taking some of the teachings that I did, how to just be able to release it to something simple like, and I talk about it in the Orange Compass. If you're really stressed out, just put your fingers in a pot of soil. Take a few breaths, connect to Mother Earth, disappears.
What is the best advice you've ever received?
Shut up. Really
Back to
serious.
listening? Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Mhm.
like, maybe you should just listen first. I was like, yeah, I haven't been good at doing that. And once I turned that around,
Mhm.
everything changed because
Mhm.
I was taking up so much space and so much energy. Like I would walk into a room and I'd be like,
Mhm.
and everybody could feel that. I didn't realize that my energy was just vibrating into everybody, and it wasn't the best. And
Mm.
now I can walk into a room and have nobody notice me, or I can walk into a room and have all the heads turn.
Mhm. And as you think back to your younger self getting started in your career, what would you tell younger Linda?
To really, when I look back, I think it's about not being stuck in the one thing, the one path that I wanted to do, and to just be able to see opportunities as they come up and take advantage of them because every opportunity will have some pros, some cons. Like I said, 3 years ago, I was recruited to be an actor. I've been in movies, I've been in commercials, and I came home, my husband says, "What? I didn't know you wanted to act." I said, "Well, I was in the drama club in high school, so why not?"
Yeah.
And it's been great. I'm so glad I opened myself up to that opportunity. So don't go like off the deep end.
Mhm.
Do take a look at it. I was safe. I knew I'd be fine. And I did my homework on my agent to find out if it was a good agent. And do your due diligence. But don't be afraid to try something new
Mhm.
or to write a book.
Yeah. Well, and I wanted to thank you so much for coming on today and sharing, but I wanted to give you a chance also to let everyone know when the book is launching officially.
September 19th on autumn equinox.
Okay. And we will include all the information in the show notes. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
I have a little gift for your readers if they're two things, if they're interested in, if they just go to my website, lindababulic.com. On there are some daily rituals, 3 daily rituals that you can do. We've discussed some of it today.
Mhm.
And at the bottom of that same page, they can sign up for the wait list for my book. So they'll be the very first to know when it launches.
Well, thank you so much. We'll include that in the show notes. And I appreciate you sharing today. And yeah, have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to TriPoint Conversations. Make sure you hit subscribe wherever you're listening so you never miss an episode. If this conversation resonated with you, share it with a friend or someone who's navigating their own next chapter. And if you know a story that deserves to be heard, or maybe that story is yours, head to TriPointStrategicGroup.com and send me a note. I can't wait to keep this journey going with you and introduce you to more incredible people who are shaping their communities one story at a time.